now tamatika. Itu tamati. Ya Karibiara Kokotuka, Ya Karibiara Tamatika. Welcome everyone, blessings and goodness and peace and all that is good to all of you. Today we are standing here to witness a most auspicious occasion and a most auspicious event. One that is most meaningful to Indigenous culture and our Indigenous heritage, not just in one part of the country. However, today you have standing amongst you and with you Indigenous leaders from a particular clan that is represented here. I'm the Grand Chief of the First Peoples, Sovereign Nations in Trinidad and Tobago, and to my left is Chief Camilla Sabara, also known as Mitchell. To my right, we have our Chiefess, Nicole Stevens, Nicholas. Yes, as well as Machan and Navarro, a very long name. We have with us, and she is for this San Rafael Arena, all the way back to the Waterfield area, coming back to boundary to this side here. Now our boundaries are different, not like the political boundaries. We have with us our Chief Michael, Stephen, Navarro, and Machan at the same time again. And he is also the Chief for San Fernando and the Acting Chief for the Cuba area. And I have already welcomed you, and now we are preparing for our unveiling ceremony. I will be seated, and I would like to invite a representative from the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts, Ministry of Sports and Community Development to also give us a briefing, and we'll follow again with our councillors and our other councillors. MP, sorry. The MP for the area is also here with us as well, and I really thank you all for your presence. And so we will begin, and I'm just seeing the arrival of Dr. Ferguson. So following and in keeping with our time, I'd also like to welcome all our members and our council members that is here. We also have our Chancellor, the head of our Chancellery here with us today, and our other elders and leaders who are here. Very happy to have you. Ya Karibiara Kokotuka Mokomoko Waratuma Tamatika Jakera Yatai Tamatika Jakera. So I'm just speaking to our Indigenous languages for Indigenous people. Dr. Ferguson, your seat is over. Is it? Yes, your seat is over here. So welcome again, and we shall continue. We have been in progress for quite a while, so welcome to those for this part of our ceremony. So we will be seated.
Especially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to represent the Ministry of Sports and Community Development at this gathering, and to bring greetings to your young village. The history of Trinidad and Tobago will show that the first people were among the original inhabitants of this blessed land. Their agricultural practices were rooted in sustainability. They relied heavily on their oral traditions to pass on their history and cultural practices to future generations. Moreover, spirituality played an important role in their daily lives. All of this was closely linked with the nature which surrounded them. Our first people were, and still are, quite skilled in the area of craft, and this was evident by the many artifacts, tools, pottery, jewelry, among others, each other and with nature was rudely interrupted by European settlers. Diseases, displacement, forced labor, cultural assimilation, and erosion, and even death were among some of the things they were forced to endure. Post this period, some of the lands originally inhabited by the first peoples have become construction sites. The actions of the past have left the first people with many challenges: land rights issues, cultural erosion, lack of recognition, among others. Notwithstanding the above, it is necessary that peace and reconciliation be vigorously pursued and achieved. While we cannot say in this land that there is any animosity among the descendants of the first peoples and the rest of society today, we cannot ignore the actions of the past and how it impacted first peoples. Like the first peoples, we can only imagine what their lives would have been like today and what Trinidad and Tobago would have been like today if the atrocities of the past had not occurred. However, we cannot go back in time. But in this present today society, we continue to say, here every creed and race find an equal place. It is against this backdrop that continuous dialogue between the state and the first peoples must ever be pursued with a view towards righting the wrongs of the past, and in so doing, fostering peace and reconciliation towards our first people. When this is pursued and achieved, then and only then can we truly say, here every creed and race find an equal place. I thank you.
We have the MP for area Chaguanas.
A pleasant good afternoon to each and every one of you. I know you've had a long day. Some of us are pretty antsy, so let me do this quickly. Representative of the Ministry of Sports and Community Development, Councillor Brenda John, and most importantly, leaders and members of the First People of Trinidad and Tobago. I know I did you too. You're very important. And you've just heard it from our rep of the Ministry of Sports and Community Development. You have played an important role in our country's development, not just our history. Usually you would hear histories that of the past, but what I'm very proud of today being present here is that our first people, it is not that we are just learning about you in the history class in our schools, because that's where I learned it. You know, I'm very proud and happy today to see that you all have come out now and you are spreading this nationwide, allowing our citizens to be aware and educated of our history. Those who may not have had that chance to learn it in school, as how we did. You know, it's there in our faces. I'm glad you're in Chaguanas. I'm glad that, you know, it's in Safe Park, because this spot we are standing in here today, it's very important to us, the people of Chaguanas. So thank you for doing this, and continue to share your culture, your history, continue to educate all of us on who you are and your fights and your challenges for us as a people, in that we can say what we are today partially because of you and your fight. So thank you very much for inviting me, you know, the day after important holiday for us. I was so tired, but definitely when I got that call, I said, you know, I have to make that time to be here to celebrate this with us, because our history is so important, and I'm very glad to see sports and community development you have made that time to be here as well, and to be a part of community development and that education. So I look forward to the unveiling, and I hope we just don't unveil, but we continue to maintain and, of course, do regular checks on what we unveil here today. So thank you very much, and to everyone, thank you for having us, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Councillor.
Good afternoon, each and everyone. Representative from the Ministry of Sports and Culture, our MP for Chaguanas East, Ms. Vandana Mohammed. I was here earlier on today about 10. I was with them throughout the day, and it so moved me to know that I did this in history in school, and knowing that the first people is in Chaguanas. They call it Chaguanas. Chaguanese. Right, so you are part of Chaguanese now. And it's so nice to make sure that we have something to represent the Indigenous people. And the chief, I thank you for reaching out personally, calling me, I think it was last week, for me to tell me this was happening, and I really, really appreciate it. I'm really chairperson for community development. I can't believe it. Thank you all so much. So the unveiling, we have to make sure that it's kept up. So I'm asking now from the representative from social and community, sports and community, if we can maintain it, and if you all could think about giving them a hug. They deserve it.
Amen.
Please.
Shakira! Shakira!
As we think about and work together to see how best we could at least acknowledge them in that particular week. So thank you very much.
I would like to invite Dr. Ferguson. I'm very happy that he's here. Dr. Ferguson is the head of the Reparations Committee. He's leading that, and he's also a good a high member of the Emancipation Support Committee to that legal. Dr. Ferguson.
Members of the First Peoples community, councillors, other guests, other members of the Indigenous community. Actually, I didn't come to speak officially. I came to observe, and I came also, particularly as a historian, because I know the history of the First Peoples. And you had a glorious history before the arrival of the Spaniards in this island and in this part of the world. But you had a very troubling, a very traumatic history and experience after that. It was virtually a struggle for survival. And if we deal with figures, when the Europeans came here, there were estimated 50,000 indigenous people. At the end of Spanish rule, which was 1797 when the British took over, there was just 1,000. 1,000. The exact figures in the census say 1,082. If you round it off in thousands, it's 1,000. What does that mean? It means genocide. Genocide. But it was not only genocide that they inflicted here, but the manner in which it was inflicted as well. Because Trinidad in particular was one of those places that was targeted in the documents, in the instructions and decrees of the Spanish monarchy. That is Isabella first and King Ferdinand after. That Trinidad was a target for raiding by slave raiders from the Dominican Republic, and Tobago as well was named. These places were named as places for the procurement of slave labor. One of the reasons was that because of the fierce independence of the people here, one of which was demonstrated in the resistance even to Columbus. A lot of people don't know that. When Columbus anchored in the name of Aruba and came to take water without permission, the team that came on shore were attacked. They were attacked, right? So that demonstrates that even the period of the history that colonialism began in 1498 is in fact a myth. It's not true. There was no colonialism in 1498. There was no colonialism for almost 100 years after. Because we were able, as a people, to resist the intrusion and the colonization of this place. And I'll give you a practical example. In 1513, there was a team that came in Mucurapo to establish both a slave raiding base and the beginning of a colony. And a chief by the name of Baukunan launched continuing attacks on that group until they were driven out. And therefore, they were able to maintain their independence. But every act like that justified them being designated as what the Spaniards call cannibales, because this place was called Isla de Canibales, meaning a cannibal island. And in Spanish law at the time, they said that cannibals were legally allowed to be enslaved. So this place was a sort of a reservoir of slave labor. The people were taken to the Dominican Republic to work in the mines, in the gold mines. We had quite a lot of gold in the Caribbean at that time, to produce cotton and food for the Spaniards. Some of them were taken to Margarita to die for pearls. A lot of them died because they could not come up from here in time without coming up with oyster shells with pearls. So many of them died. So it's not surprising. And then there were episodes of massacres as well. One of the best known is the Arena Massacre. But there were other instances. In Mucurapo itself, before the Spaniards left, they massacred an entire village in the night. People were sleeping. They killed all of them. So in that sense, and then they established the principal institution of enslavement throughout the Caribbean called encomienda. Trinidad had 4 encomiendas. And that was the basis on which they also drew labor to cultivate cocoa and tobacco. So the kind of brutalization that the native people suffered under the Spanish colonists, the Spanish invaders, the Spanish soldiers, and also the Roman Catholic Church, we shouldn't forget them, we can't leave them out, because they were also here. In fact, the first attempt to colonize the people here was the Roman Catholic Church in the year 1513. And they were resisted as well. In fact, they were driven out of the island. So those attempts ensured the survival of remnants of the original population. And you therefore represent an important element not only in the history of this country, but in the history of struggle. The history of struggle, the history of this region during the colonial period was a history of struggle which continues up to today, where you're struggling for recognition, you're struggling for reparative justice, and I can assure you that whatever I can do to ensure that those objectives are achieved, I will do. So this is an important moment, a very important moment. If I did not come, the name Chaguanas would have remained only in the history book for me. A lot of the names of indigenous peoples are just in the history books. In fact, they were virtually written out of the history, but they were there in the works of the archaeologists. And I'll give you an example before I end. During the British period, that's the period we succeeded the transition from into independence. During the British period, from 1797, during the entire 19th century. Whenever the native peoples were mentioned, they were mentioned alongside Columbus as slave labor, but you never saw anything about their culture, about their religion, about their economy. It was just that they were an appendage of the Spanish colonizers. And then they seem to have disappeared by the 20th century. They re-emerged in Eric Williams' History of Trinidad and Tobago, which was published the year of independence. He gave them one chapter in that book. But there is again no understanding in that book of the culture, the religion, and the real history of the people. And it was treated very little differently to the way they were treated in the 19th century. But in terms of the school syllabus, they were not there. And that's why we have this understanding of who were the people in this country. Were they Arawaks, were they Caribs, were they cannibals, and all kinds of things. Because that was the history they taught, you know, that the Caribs were chasing the Arawaks up and down the Caribbean, you know, to enslave them and to kill them, even, you know, to consume them and so on. That's the history that was taught. And then, from 1982, when preparations began for the 500th anniversary of the arrival of Columbus, there was a massive uprising across Latin America and the Caribbean by indigenous people saying, no, 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 no. This is not our celebration. This day you're planning to celebrate is a day of tragedy for us. It's a day that we need to remember, yes, but not to celebrate, okay? And that also triggered out in the United Nations the need to protect the rights of indigenous peoples, not only here but around the world. So that began in around 1982 with the United Nations intervention, trying to produce a document on the rights of indigenous peoples. There was resistance from a number of places. By 1990, the government of Trinidad and Tobago gave recognition to one group of indigenous peoples. But then in 1993, the United Nations declared the first decade of indigenous peoples. And finally, in 2007, they were able to pass, the United Nations operate by resolution. Canada, United States, Australia, and New Zealand had been the major resistance to the declaration. But eventually, in 2007, they had enough votes. These countries were still resisting, but they got enough votes. So the document, 2007, the Declaration, United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples around the world, is the basis of the foundation of your claim for recognition, in your claim, whatever claim that you make of government in terms of your rights as a people, your right to recognition, your right to the return of land, the right to recognize your sacred places are in that document. So that is an important document, at least for the leaders of the community to familiarize themselves with. The 2007 United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Okay, so I said that I will stop there. That's an important document. Please, it's online, so you can Google it, download it, and ensure that you understand at least some of the declarations there, some of the provisions which you can now use and bring forward when you're making your claims for recognition, for rights, for the return of life, recognition of the culture, and so on. Okay? So I congratulate you for organizing yourselves and for being under the effective leadership of my colleagues, Eric, Chief Eric, whom I have known for some years now. I know he's a great organizer. So with that in mind, I say all the best for you, to all of you, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you. As I said, I did not come to speak. Some of you might be saying, well, what if you had come to speak? Okay, I really did not come to speak, but I am happy to have had the opportunity to say a few words to you, and enjoy the rest of the session. Thank you very much.
Chaguanas, and thank you all, thank you everybody. I'll do the vote of thanks right now, because now we'll be going into our ceremonial mode and our ceremonial activity, which is totally different from a European, which is totally different from the European construct of when a function. Yeah, which is totally different. So we do our vote of thanks now, because once we go into our ceremonies, right, it's ceremonial, so we're doing a high ceremony here today. We'll be excluding one, which will be the cleansing and purification. However, we'll be doing the smoking ceremony and the smoke ceremony, and that will just be amongst the chiefs. And so you'll see how that is. And it is a sacred time. I'm very happy for all the contributions made today, all of those global contributions, and I appreciate the presence of the Ministry of Community Development, Sports and Community Development and Arts. Now, I have known this ministry for so many years, and it has changed so many different times, you know, and the presence of the MP for the area, the presence of the councillor, and also the presence of our historian, Dr. Ferguson. And also, I would like to say a special thanks to all of our chiefs and all of our Toshals and our Indigenous leaders in different parts of the country. Thank you, and all the leaders who have been joining with us, dealing with me all years. Thank you. If you want, I could call out all the names. Yes, I'd like to say thanks to the Chief of Chaguanas, Mitchell Sabala. Thanks to the Chiefess over here, Nicole. Thanks to our next Chief of Chaguanas, Vancouver, Michael. Thanks to our leader for St. Joseph, Tunapuna, Puref area, who is present with us. And this is our next team by themselves over here, Staran and Mila. John left already. And our Tobago contingent is not here today because, we can't pressure everybody to be here with, with the time that we're working with. I'll share with you all briefly, and thanks also Augustine. Now, the council work, Pat and Steve, they were the ones who basically sponsored the mold for the statue. Years ago, this wasn't a yesterday plan. This was a plan from years ago when the chief was alive, the old chief was alive. Right, so what we are doing today is a continuation of that work. However, while he was alive, we didn't get media presence. Okay, today we don't even have any regular media person or personnel here. You all notice that? And that's fine. And for me, I said I'm a young person and I've been taught to do what I'm placed here to do, move on, forget what I've done in the past, and move on. And I believe that has been my driving force in why I do what I do. And another reason why I do what I do is because I understand fragility of life. I'm here for a short period of time. I want to get these things out of the way so that when my time comes for my eyes to close, I can rest in pieces. Not just one piece, but rest in pieces well. Right? So I know that we have a mission to complete within our existence here. Let's do it well, let's do it as good as possible. The reason why we were in this situation is because there were some hiccups, not on our end, nothing on our end at all. But I say all things work out for the good. For those who love the Lord and those who believe, right? And I believe that for everybody and for everything. So I have nothing more to say. I mean, I have a whole lot more that we can say, but Jakira, and now we're going to prepare for our procession, so you all remain seated. The chiefs and chiefess and some of our Indigenous leaders, and also Delki here. Delki also represents our Delta Amapure region of the chieftaincy, because people have been doubting it. Now, I've been working with Indigenous community both in Trinidad and in Venezuela. They say, oh, what does that mean? It means that I have people there that I support. It doesn't mean that I rule all the Caribbean countries and I rule over the other groups. The other groups in the country have their work to do, and I want to make one thing clear. The chieftaincy exists like this. Just like you have different religions, different faiths and different practices, you have 3 and 4 archbishops and bishops in Trinidad, it's the same thing. Let me put it into that context so people can understand clearly. I do not rule over the Santa Rosa First people, I do not rule over the people who call themselves the Warao Nation, but I am with the Warao people. I'm also chief of the Warao people, as you can see here, as well. And as chief, you are literally almost like their father. Like their friend, their father, their counsel, and they also counsel you. So when my pressure cooker very high, they will come and say, Chief, everybody is angry. You know, don't worry, be calm, things will work out. So thanks again to the council who make things possible. Thanks to the people who support contribute. This was not funded by the government, and I'm very happy, not because I didn't ask for any assistance, but I'm very happy because I saw some of the comments that people assume that we are doing what we do for money. I'm not planning to beg the government for any acreage of land. We have over 250 acres in Maruga already. Right? We have nothing to beg for. The community, our indigenous community that you see here, and other people who are part of it, and the neighbors and this one, they made all of those things possible here, and everything possible here. This is how indigenous community works. And this is where our strength is. When we come together as a people and we put our resources together, we make magic. We make magic. And this is the magic of the chieftaincy. The chieftaincy means the togetherness of all the people, right? And that's what the grand chief means. And the indigenous community, this is how we do our, people like the Segovia, this is how we do our magic. So you see the practice, you see the food, we had everything, and everything has been beautiful, everything has been perfect, and this is how we work. Jakira, Yakoria. Naboto, na automatica palma tayo. Pukutukap. Dubuhira kitani.